Hey everybody, John Henning here with the Franchise Radio Show, and today we're going to sit down and we're going to chat with David Grossman, the CEO and president of Renue Systems. David, thanks for taking some time with us here, buddy.
Oh, it's great to be here, John. Much appreciated.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Always love talking with you and learning about what you guys going on. I'm sure we'll be hearing about some of that today. Hey, before we go into the business stuff, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you from, before you got involved with Renue Systems. Tell the listeners, like, who is David?
Yeah, I born in Chicago and ended up going out east for school and ended up staying for school and believe it or not, got a graduate degree, a PhD, decided I didn't want to become academic and went in the private sector. Two main things. I was doing some management consulting, trying to help companies grow their businesses, big companies. And then I was an investor, worked at some banks, at some funds, doing some private equity, venture capital. Enjoyed those both reasonably well, helping companies try to grow. Probably the biggest source of frustration was I was always kind of at the high level, never really involved. I was at the board level and at the 30,000 foot level, so to speak,
Hmm.
and really wanted to get more involved. And in college, I ran a small business and just had a lot of fun doing that. And that was always in the back of my mind. So when I was laid off three times, three separate banks, all three times they say, no, David, it's not your performance. We're just getting rid of the group. But regardless of the reason, if it was or wasn't my performance, just it was enough already. And it just, I wanted to have a career in something where I have a little bit more control. I'm not a control freak, but just to have a little more control over my destiny. So I
Sure.
started looking to get involved with a smaller-ish business that I could really get my hands dirty. Took me the better part of 10 years while I had some day jobs and found this business through a business broker that I knew nothing about cleaning. I knew nothing about hotels, which are the two key aspects of what we do, or even franchising. But something struck me kind of interesting. And the more I dug into it, the more I really got to like the business and thought it was a good fit for me because it's really what we do, which we can get into in a moment. Our success, we had this nice niche in a leadership position, this niche that we carved out. Not me, but I wasn't involved at the time, but had been a little bit sleepy, to be honest, because the owner would kind of put it on autopilot. So needed a little more energy. And I got involved with the small team that was there, and we just put our heads down and got to work. And it's really about execution. And I had a lot of confidence in myself. Now, it was a big risk because I stretched financially, but I thought this was the way to do it and just had enough confidence. Fortunately, my wife did as well in me and just got to work. And it's been, that was very beginning of 2010. So it's been good 15 years now, feels like yesterday, and still having a lot of fun, or at least most days having a lot of fun, and got a
Sure.
good group of teammates, and still feels like it's early days. So we got a lot of growth we think we can still accomplish, and just want to just keep doing what we're doing and keep trying to grow the business.
Now, take us through a little bit of a high level overview, walk us through from, where you started 2010 till where you're at today, and then give us that high level overview of the business model. Like you alluded to a couple of things there. Kind of just, start with, how you got to where you are today, and then also what the business actually does so that our listeners can understand the model a little bit.
Yeah, I probably should explain that. That part is what we do. Our company is called Renew Systems, RENUE Systems, and that's also our website.com. We started out, again, predated me, as a general cleaning company,
Mhm.
cleaning homes, restaurants, frankly, who would ever pay us to do the work. But our founder saw just how competitive it was to be a general cleaning company. It's only gotten more so since. This was
Sure.
in the early 90s. So he had the foresight to think about, hey, I should try to carve out some specialty. And soon thereafter, he picked up a new customer, a small hotel. And so ever since then, we've kind of gone down the path of specializing really in two key ways. One is our customer base, which is primarily the 4-star, 5-star big branded hotels like Marriott and Hilton and Hyatt and Intercontinental and others. And we're a preferred vendor with all those and some other brands as well. And the other specialty is the type of work we do, which we call deep cleaning. So think, you're thinking about hotel, think not the everyday housekeeping or the
Hmm.
nightly janitorial, but rather the more challenging projects that happen from time to time, running anything from eliminating the stains in carpets to the odors in the guest rooms. We're good at restoring, polishing marble, chandelier cleaning, escalator cleaning, tile and grout, power washing. We've recently gotten into kitchen deep cleaning, which has been a nice service offering. So just a wide range of services that, as a guest, you probably don't think about, but hotels tend to want from time to time, but not every day. So they never really get good at it themselves and have a dedicated team. So that's what a role that we play. So that's really what the business does. We are based in Chicago, where that location is still company owned and operated, which we think is important to make us a good to be able to relate to our franchisees. We use
Yep.
it for testing and R&D and things and training. And then we now have 32 locations. We give out big ones. It tends to be one per major metropolitan area. So our franchisees have a lot of runway to build big businesses with our support. But we still have 15 or so nice locations available in the US, plus a couple resales. And then we started expanding internationally. So we're now entering our sixth country, and we think there's lots of room for growth internationally too, because our existing international locations are ramping up nicely, giving us more validation. So does now. When I got involved, we had fewer locations, and frankly, I mentioned we got a little bit sleepy, so we needed to put more energy, put more marketing effort into it, helping our franchisees. Frankly, some of the franchisees um, probably were at the end of their life cycle. And I don't say this disrespectfully to the old owner, because I probably would have done
Sure.
the same thing. But as is common in franchising, that some of the earlier franchisees are very different. They're much more operationally oriented. Then as you grow, you're looking more for sales oriented, relationship oriented sales in our case. So a lot of them, some of our franchisees could make that leap, but not all of them. So we helped transition the ones out that weren't the right ones, and they made some money and went on to do something else, and we brought in other people. So there was a lot of that was needed, a lot of more marketing muscle. We greatly expanded our service scope, so we're almost, I hate to use the term, but a one-stop shop to our customers, as opposed
Hmm.
to just being a partial solution. And that's been a big plus for us, and more cross-selling opportunities. And we've just picked up a lot of new big brands. We've become preferred vendors, I mentioned, with a lot of the biggest brands in the world, which not only help us in the US, but they help us beyond our borders here as well. So that's a lot of what we did. Yeah, we've grown the number of franchisees. Our company-owned locations really grown a lot too. But it's really just a lot of little things, blocking and tackling. Some of the success has been, frankly, beyond our control. But we build up some nice barriers for competitors as well, because certainly general cleaning is very competitive, but hotels have a lot of nuances that if you aren't steeped in them and don't know how to operate them, it's really hard to break into them. So that's a lot of what we've done, and we've improved our team. We've got a good team, still a small team, which allows us to be very responsive to our franchisees, which is
Hmm.
important to us. But the model of just being very customer service focused to our customers, and also importantly our franchisees, is something that we really try to stick to, with a model of servant leadership, and that we really feel like we're here to serve our franchisees.
You know, you said a lot of things in there that I wrote down, just a couple of quick notes I wanted to touch on. Number one was the statement you made about doing the deep clean. See, when you said, oh, we do hotel cleaning, right? And there's a whole list of things that go with that. But I'm thinking, like, as a consumer, oh, that's done by housekeeping. But in reality, I can't imagine that that team actually even has time to do that, or would be able to do the type of deep cleaning you guys are providing, right?
You hit it right on the head. That's right. It's hard enough for hotels to staff up
Yeah,
their everyday jobs like housekeeping.
yeah,
That's right. And to try to do what we do, not saying we're the best at it and others can't do it. And some hotels try to do it, and some successfully, some not so as successfully. But you're exactly right. In our when we talk to a hotel that may be doing some of the work themselves, our pitch is not, hey, fire three people and hire us. It's more of we're here to help if you're not able to keep up with the work, to your point, John, about them not having the time, or just not getting the results you want, because typically, and not disrespectfully to our customers, but their team is not trained at doing this
right.
specialty work. They're good at doing the housekeeping. They're not trained at doing this specialty work. They probably don't have the right equipment, the right chemicals, and if they do have the right equipment, it's likely not being maintained. And the persons that may have been trained are probably may not be at the hotel anymore. And even if they do the work, again, they just may not get the results, and they certainly will not get the productivity. And we've measured ourselves. We're at least three, usually closer to five times as efficient, meaning get as many rooms done per day than they can get. So cleaning up the room faster than they can rent them out quicker. And then they realize, let's take care of our housekeepers and have them keep their day jobs and focus, and their engineering staff sometimes does it, focus on their day jobs, and instead of trying to do off the corner of their desk the stuff that experts like Renue can do.
That just makes so much sense. And then there was two other things. The two types of growth you were talking about. You have plenty of domestic growth available with new locations, but something you mentioned was kind of the internal organic growth was adding in some of those other services to let your franchisees expand within their territories. You mentioned things like escalators and kitchens, and those are just things that the bigger things you just don't think about doing a deep clean on. So I like the organic growth, and then it's exciting, of course, a franchise that can go international. And something you mentioned about that was with the ramp that they're experiencing now, you're starting to get some good feedback and good validation from those folks too.
That's right. That's certainly very helpful, and we work hard to help our franchisees. One of the benefits I mentioned, we've got about 32 franchisees. Uh, there's two benefits of the way that we're structured as far as giving out big territories. I mean, we brought in a consultant. They said, maybe your territories are too big to have, one person servicing all of Nashville as example, one of the locations we're looking to fill. Why don't you divide that into four, and you can make more money on the upfront fee? Smaller territories, maybe a smaller price point, but you can make more money and have somebody in there. But we like to deal with a smaller number of hopefully high quality franchisee or franchisee teams.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of bandwidth. Even our biggest and oldest locations are not tapped out as far as growth. So there's always growth opportunities. To your point, more services, more customers, things like that. Uh, that's one benefit, just being able to keep growing your business. But the other one is it keeps our number of franchisees small. We've got 32. Even when we're, quote, sold out around the world, it's still going to be a fairly modest number. So our team so far has done a pretty good job, I think, of being very responsive to our franchisees, and all of them know that they can call either myself or other people on the team, either get us on the phone then or definitely get a return call that day. And to be able to keep up that level of responsiveness is something we're really working hard on, and I think doing a pretty good job of. So we really want to do that as well. And so having a small number of franchisees allows us to keep up that type of culture, frankly.
I've always said, if you listen to some of my other podcasts, I've always said that communication is the key between good relationships with franchisees and franchisors. You can, if the numbers make sense, of course, the numbers have to make sense.
Yeah.
So if the numbers make sense, then the communication is one of the critically important things. Like I've said that like a billion times over the past 20 years in franchising. So that's great
Yeah.
to hear. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Hey, tell me a little bit about what separates you from the competition. You guys aren't the only company that offers this. It seems like you've got your fair share of the business and you're doing things to differentiate yourself. What separates you from the competition? How do you guys differentiate yourselves from the other folks that do what you do?
Sure. Yeah. Obviously, an important question. The To the best of my knowledge, every time we've entered a location, whether it's US or internationally, within 12 months, we become the biggest in what we do. And certainly we're the biggest internationally right now, biggest in the US overall. The a lot of it is there's no one secret sauce. It's a combination of the 30 plus years of servicing hotels and knowing how to handle them. They're a very different type of customer than you'll find elsewhere. If you wanted to clean an office building, as an example, you could probably go anytime between 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. You'll never run into any customers.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't matter what your crew looks like. They can go in and do the work. But hotels are open 24/7.
Sure.
So we're working in a live environment. We're always coming into contact with the end customer. So hotels are very sensitive to the vendors they allow inside. So they know we're very professional. We've been vetted by Marriott Corporate as an example, Hyatt Corporate, Hilton Corporate. We've been approved by them. That doesn't mean that their hotels have to use us, but it's a big stamp of approval because they know that we're very professional. We've got high insurance. We know what it is to maneuver within hotels. Our technicians are trained not only to do quality work, but etiquette as well. And then
Hmm.
a lot of our equipment is designed for hotels. Again, going to an office or your home, if you wanted that clean, they'll probably pull up the company with a big truck with a hose, and that works fine for your home, for your office building. But you can imagine the Ritz-Carlton does not want a truck parked in their front of on the driveway with long hoses running through the lobby and up the stairways. So we have different units. We've got portable cleaning units, which work very well, much less obtrusive to the hotel, and they like that. Similarly, drape cleaning. Typically, places would take their drapes off the rod, send them out to a dry cleaning. 24 hours later, they install them back. So a lot of labor, and you can't rent the room for a day. So we've developed a process where we can clean the drapes while they're hanging on the rod. It takes all of 20 minutes, work very well, very cost effective, and they can rent out the room. So just a couple examples of knowing our customers, kind of the whole focus, the DNA of our company is based on the needs of the hospitality industry. So that's given us a lot of edge, to be honest. And we know hotels, their schedules sometimes change in short notice because occupancy levels can suddenly spike up, and so we know how to roll with that and schedule and roll with our schedules as well. So there's a lot of nuances when you get to know the hotels that we didn't know at first, but we figured it out, and that's given us a lot of advantages over other cleaning companies, of which there are many of them. But those are but in hotels, there are really not a lot that have a lot of expertise, a lot of presence. And the last comment I'll make is it's just a wide range of services. Very few companies can handle all those services, some of which you enumerated. Many of them can only do a few services at a time. So the hotel would have to manage three or four vendors. And they like the fact that with one phone call, they can have one company come, get the job done, get a job on time, not bother the customers, and not need to be babysat.
Well, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, those differentiators sound a lot more than I originally thought. Like just having that specialized equipment, providing those services, but I think also going into understanding the client, right? Like the things you mentioned, and I'm sure there's plenty more of them. Those are just a couple of examples, but just those things. When you said, I knew where you were going when you said about being able to say normal commercial cleaning in a bank or an office building where there's not going to be any customers there from 6 p.m. till 8 a.m. As soon as you said that, I knew right where you're going, in a hotel because the customers are there like almost all the time at some point, right? So knowing those
That's right.
nuances, I can see that really separating it apart and having that specialized equipment and offering those multiple services, I see that as a huge benefit. Now let's talk a little bit about just a little bit about the numbers. We'll get into maybe the cost of the franchise. What does it take? So I'm interested. I've raised my hand. We're going through the process. I've been approved for the franchise. here's my initial franchise fee. What do the numbers look like from an investment standpoint if I'm the buyer?
Yes. So the cost in the U.S., according to our latest FDD, is between 165 to $195,000. That's a pretty comprehensive number. Franchise, all the equipment. There's a lot of equipment, chemicals, supplies, and training, and then all the third-party costs. A cargo van,
Hmm.
working capital even is in there. We're a home. You can definitely operate as a home office, so a home office based service business. There's not a lot of overhead. It's very scalable. You start with a small team, one, at most two, but can start with as few as one technician. And if our franchisees don't have one in mind, and they typically don't, we help them try to find someone. They come in for training, which we can start within a month after signing the franchise agreement, and come in for training. And it's about a week and a half of training. They'll go back to their territory with all their equipment, chemicals, supplies, van, and we'll start the marketing. And we do a lot of that for our franchisees. We Some of the highlights that we do is we use a CRM where we'll load into that all the hotels in their market. I'll use it in the Nashville example again, all the hotels in the Nashville market. We also include the key managers and all their contact information, and we start contacting them on behalf of our franchisee to introduce them, create awareness, try to set up some meetings. We don't charge extra for all this. This is all part of the package. And I'll go out a couple weeks after they start. We'll go start visiting hotels so our franchisees comfortable going in, knowing what to say, doing the pitch. But we do a lot of this heavy lifting, especially in the early days, to try to start getting jump starting for our franchisees. After a little bit of time, they'll start doing some of that on their own as well. So we'll do it together, but it's an
Sure.
ongoing effort. We always, on behalf of all of our franchisees, every month we send out a communication to all the hotels so we're staying in front of them. But typically after our franchisees start to meet, the managers of one of the hotels, they'll start building that relationship and going from there and talking about how we can help them and giving them some pricing, doing a demonstration. We like to do that as an opener. Just go in, clean, say, one guest room for free and
Sure.
show them, take a picture of before and take a picture of after. And they're often very surprised at the just the difference between the two. And we seeing the work done in their own hotel is often an eye opener and gets us going. So that's what it is. And we start to get a little bit of work. We'll often get one project at a hotel, it might be a small one. They want to test us. We do a good job. We get another one. One Hilton hotel will recommend us to another Hilton hotel, and it kind of goes from there. We get a lot of repeat work, typically, and it expands. Start getting more references, inbound calls when they start coming. That's obviously a good sign as well. So that's how it works. And as the team grows, hire more people. We encourage our franchisees the first couple months to get their hands dirty alongside their initial one or two technicians, so they're
Hmm.
feeling comfortable with it. And then they start to step back, manage the team, and increasingly spend more and more of their time interacting with the hotel managers with our support on that. So their role, really, our franchisees' role is dual. It's operations, more managing the team, and then on the sales side, building and maintaining relationships. If you ask me which is more important, the latter. Really, we give big territories. We want them to grow, so we're not looking for people that want to do the cleaning on a day-by-day basis. Every once in a while, yeah, you'll want to do it or need to do it, but by and large, you should, after the first few months, our franchisees should be spending most of their time interacting with customers and prospects. And the business is scalable, but even our biggest franchisees still have a small team uh, by cleaning standards. Typically, our average is about 6 to 7 technicians and a couple vans. Our biggest have about 14 technicians and about 4 vans. So very manageable. We encourage our franchisees and run our company-owned location, paying a higher than going wage, get good quality people, and we find that that's worthwhile, particularly the margins in the business support, paying a healthy wage. and we get good results that way. So manageable HR perspective, which allows us and our franchisees to focus as much as possible on trying to grow the business.
You mentioned, David, a couple different things in there. I just want to ask a question about, you mentioned about the training. How does the training work? Am I coming to Chicago? You're coming to me? Is it a mixture? Is there anything that's done online before and after? What does the training cycle look like, and how long does that take for me to get the basics of the business down?
It's all in Chicago at our company location. Actually, a lot of it's done in nearby customers. So we'll see what it's like to work in a live environment. And that's about a week and a half, heavily focused on the operational end, how to do the cleaning. We
Sure.
definitely spend some time with the franchisee on marketing, business growth, and all that. But then they'll go back to their area. We do a lot online. Support is needed as when we roll out with a new service. We train people either in person or a lot of it can be online. And then we have a lot of tools like when they want to hire new people, they're always welcome to send them to Chicago for more training. But we have like videos now, both in English and Spanish, that go through a lot of our services. We've got a very detailed training manual, but we're also good with questions, and we expect our franchisees to have questions. As an example, they're coming up against well, how do I clean this surface? I know you taught me about, I can't remember, or this one's challenging. They'll snap a picture, text it to us. They'll get a quick call back with instructions. So we've got that down pretty well. We'll send a trainer out if needed. They're always welcome to come to Chicago. Internationally, we typically can go and do the training out by them because sometimes it's hard for teams. We've got a location and about to open our second location in the Middle East. It's hard for them to send their teams to the States. So we'll find a way of training them, sending a trainer out there. So we're very entrepreneurial and how we operate the company and quick moving. We're very good problem solvers. We help on the training end. We help our franchisees. There's been a lot of situations we've seen. There's probably not too many that we haven't seen. Quick example, one of our franchisees brought a couple of workers in initially to Chicago. They saw that they didn't like it. They left after day one, and our franchisees like, oh, what am I going to do? I don't have anyone. I don't know how to do the cleaning. I'm going to learn, but who's going to do the work? We got him through the situation. He survived, and he's building a nice business. So we're very good at handling pretty much any curveball that's thrown our way.
That's good to hear. Sounds like you got a really good training program in place and that you've been down that proverbial road before. When it sounds like those hurdles come up, you're able to help them get through there. When I come on board, I'm a franchise owner, high five. I'm scheduled to come to Chicago for training. How long does it take me to get open from the time that I am approved for the franchise until the time I actually quote open the doors on the business?
Yeah, I mean, even from when we start our initial conversation talking about Renew, we can close in as few as 2 months to sign the franchise agreement. Usually takes a little longer because the franchisee, wants to take their time in the process, and that's fine. But we can walk them through the process, like I say, in a matter of 2 months or even quicker if it makes sense. And then once they sign the franchise agreement, we can schedule training in as soon as a month. We order the equipment, chemicals, make sure that's arrives in time to Chicago so they're learning on their actual items. And like I say, a month, they'll just need to do some legwork during that time, get a small storage facility. We'll work to get them a vehicle. And then again, they'll come to Chicago. We'll do that training. It's about a week and a half process. And then they'll go back to their territory. And during that training time when they're in Chicago, that's when we heavily start the marketing, start targeting the hotels so that when they go back their territory, good chance they've got some meetings lined up. And then we start going, and I soon thereafter, a week or two or three later, go out and we start doing these meetings together. So it's a pretty quick process on our end. It's not uncommon to take another month or so. It's often the franchisee around their scheduling, and that's fine. But
Sure.
we can do it in a matter of the time frame that I mentioned because there's no big real estate We don't need to find a store or
Right.
restaurant and build that out, which is, as you know, John, can take many months or even year plus.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been down that road myself a few times. So that's great that you've got that system in place from helping them get open, and it seems like it's a really comprehensive situation. And the time frame you outlined is very reasonable. You go through your due diligence, get approved for the franchise, and then you can schedule the training right around their schedule and get them open and operating soon. That's really great to hear. Now, moving over, I'm open, I'm operating, I'm done with the training, things are moving in the right direction, and I've got a challenge. I don't know what it is, but being in business, we know there's always going to be challenges. What kind of support does headquarters provide? What am I getting for that royalty? How does that work when it comes to support? What does that look like?
Yeah, sure. Part of the royalty actually we pay as a rebate to our big preferred vendor customers. So in addition to them liking the quality work we do and knowing it's a service that they recommend to their properties, they're economically incented too because there's a rebate attached. So call that part of a marketing fee. So that's one certainly big benefit that our franchisees get. That's not an additional fee; it comes out of the royalty. But what they get is, I mentioned some of the ongoing operational support. It's not just a week and a half of training, but there's always going to be questions. Again, how do I clean the surface? Or here's something I haven't seen before. Can you help me? Or what about this piece of equipment? Is this something you recommend? We're very good at, we'll answer all those questions. We do, as I mentioned, new training when we come up with a new service, or we're doing a lot of, we go to all the trade shows to make sure we're using what we think is the best equipment and the chemicals and processes. So there's a lot of that ongoing. Then also on I'll say the two other buckets that are on the marketing end. I mentioned how franchisees and they have a lot of access to it as well. And then so there's always this ongoing support, not only at the beginning, but every month we send out emails to all the properties on behalf of our franchisees, maybe talking about a promotion or, hey, this time of the year, spring cleaning, you should get X, Y, and Z done, or just some information, some useful education. We're big into educating our customers. So that's ongoing. We do a lot on LinkedIn. We do meetings. We go to customer trade shows on behalf of our franchisees. So there's a lot of that. I visit and then the third bucket is also the business building. So I visited our franchisees at least once a year, our newer ones more often. We do an operational review. We go visit a lot of customers, things like that. We do because again, we try to provide responsive and individual help to our franchisees. Often each one may need some different help. Some are a little less financially astute, so we'll help them. Hey, here's how you should structure your QuickBooks, and here are the key metrics to look for on a monthly basis to make sure you're getting the right productivity and efficiency. We've helped them hire and created a good good relationships with small business coaches to give them some extra coaching if they want an outside perspective. We're doing a lot of team building in addition to an annual franchisee convention. We're now doing monthly Zoom calls with everyone to talk about certain topics, building also the internal culture. So not just between franchisor and franchisee, but we're really trying to utilize the franchisee network. So people are building on that, not just the once a year they see each other at the convention, but really keeping up relationships so that they feel free to call or even visit each one from time to time. We've got internal email communications between them as well. So we're trying to build a culture and the support network beyond just the franchisor. So those are some of the things we do when a franchisee wants to sell, and we don't take it personally. We expect them to do it. We're very involved with that if they want us to help coach them through the process. We usually are able to help find a buyer for them, find a franchise consultant, even someone like yourself to help on that end as well. So we try to play a role. We don't want to overstep our bounds, but we certainly offer our help in many ways.
That's great. It sounds like you provide a lot of support all the way through, from beginning all the way through, even through the exit segment of the relationship with the franchisee, right? So let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned briefly about the employees. Let's talk about that a little bit. Is it something that they're ramping into? You mentioned about starting with maybe one or two. Can we go back to that section a little bit and just talk a little bit about the employees and who am I hiring? When am I hiring? How does that work?
Yeah, just like our franchisees don't need to have any cleaning experience, any hotel experience. In fact, we often prefer them not to because we like
Mm-hmm.
to train them to what we think is appropriate for our customers.
Right.
Similarly with their what we'll call technicians, that if they have some carpet cleaning experience, great. They certainly don't need it. And we want them all to get trained anyway with Renew. And I say carpet cleaning, it can be tile and grout cleaning and all that because there's a wide variety of services. But they really what they need, what we encourage them to hire, and we've got job specs that we give them if they want, and help them guide them through the types of people that fit with them. We don't choose them, of course, but we'll give as much advice as they want, especially since many of them don't have anybody in mind. So we'll give them our advice, but we can train almost anyone as long as they can stand on their feet 8 hours a day. They don't have to be particularly strong. They just have to be willing to perform manual labor, and then we'll train them to do it. And we encourage our franchisees to hire the same way that we look for our franchisees, really more on personality. Are they professional? Are they reliable? When our franchisee calls them, do they actually pick up the phone? Just
Right.
those types of basic qualities that are frankly much harder to teach than they are the carpet cleaning and the tile and grout cleaning experience. So that's what we're looking for. Again, we encourage them to pay a higher than going wage so they can get good or better quality people and retain them for a long period of time. So there's not a specific profile, a background, but it's just someone who, again, has to be willing and able to perform manual labor, be on their feet, and really more the personality is what we're looking for. And if they have that, there's a good chance that we can train them.
Well, you're speaking music to my ears because it leads right into my next question. But I just want to comment on that because you and I both know a lot of this is all about finding and keeping good people and surrounding yourself with the right team and the folks that agree with the way that you're doing business and culturally the way you look at the business and how you treat your clients. I think that, people and who we end up working with and working in franchising and or employees, I think that's one of the big things in business, right?
That's right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Speaking of people, let's talk a little bit about the person that would be, say, an ideal fit for your franchise as an owner. Who does it make the most sense to talk with about becoming a franchise owner? Who's your ideal person?
Yeah, I mentioned a little bit about the skill set, about being able to manage a small team of blue collar technicians, yet form relationships with white collar managers, so to speak. And, one example, and we have a few of these, would be pharmaceutical salespeople. They
Hmm.
don't like day jobs, they like desk jobs, I should say, they like to run around, and that fits well here. They can get their hands dirty when needed, often manage they've experienced managing a team, and at the same time are very good relationship builders and can close on sales. So those are the types of people that's one profile. We have a few of those, but if you looked at the backgrounds of our franchisees, it's a wide range, and many of them are not necessarily salespeople or even marketing people. But they're there. They can build relationships. They're very credible. They're very honest, hardworking. It's a wide range. Very few know anything about cleaning, and that's totally fine with us. It's more of we think, a skill set, someone who can manage a small team, yet likes to build relationships, and just comes off very credible, very honest, and very genuine That's really the types of people. We're not in a sexy business. We're not looking for flashy salespeople. It's just kind of honest, hardworking, credible people that they're there to really try to help their customers and form long-term relationships as opposed to trying to make the quick buck.
Well, that's good to hear because that's kind of what I assumed you were going to say. I had an idea of where you were going with that and being able to do the things that you talked about with that person. I like the you've mentioned it a couple of times that they don't need to have any cleaning experience, and almost that might be somewhat of a benefit if they don't, because then I believe you don't have to untrain them then, right? Is that where you were going with that?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the day in the life of a franchise owner. You've mentioned a couple different things throughout the conversation. Walk us through just what a regular day looks like. If I'm a franchise owner and I'm in Nashville, what am I doing? What's the day look like for me and my business?
Yeah, after the first several months where they're more involved operationally, the average day could be something like they may in the morning go visit a few hotels around the area where one of their teams is working. So they'll
Hmm.
stop in just to see how they're doing, say hello, then say hello to the general manager or whoever we're dealing with at that hotel, make sure they're happy, maybe talk about a new service or some upcoming work that property may want. So it's that visit would be to just check in on the team, but also to schmooze, shall we say, with the manager, maybe try to get some additional work. Uh, that's a good part of it. Don't have to certainly check in every day on the teams, and usually you don't, but it's sometimes a good excuse to go at least talk to the customer then. Part of the job would be also then scheduling the team, their work would also be maybe giving out some proposals, creating proposals for that customer that may want, that I just mentioned, may want tile and grout cleaning next. So we can just crank out a proposal, which after our franchisees have done 8 or 10 times, they can kind of do it in their sleep pretty quickly. And there may be, hey, there's a new hotel that we haven't done work for that wants us to do a demonstration, in which we certainly encourage because we think it's a big selling point. So we'll go, maybe the franchisee will send one worker to go do a demonstration on their marble restoration. That
Hmm.
may be a chance to stop in as well. So that would be part of it. The administrative aspect, billing, payroll, ordering supplies, that's very minimal, maybe 10%. That can be done after hours, but that's really it. And the hours for our technicians, maybe it's surprising, but it's really daytime, 8 to 4, typically weekdays, because even if a hotel is busy, they're pretty emptied out during the day. So a lot of it is daytime and weekday. Doesn't mean there's not sometimes weekend work or night work, but the majority is during the day. And similarly with our franchisee, that's when they're typically busy. That's not to say they won't get after hour phone calls or texts or occasionally some work that they want to take care of then. But their day, it's not a 24/7 business that it's not too often that 3 in the morning we get a call
Yeah.
on a Saturday night. That's really, we're not in that business, the emergency restoration business. So the lifestyle, there's a lot happening, and we don't recommend turning your phone off at 5 p.m. on a Friday and not checking it till 9 a.m. Monday. But it is a reasonably manageable business.
It's interesting, David. You've mentioned a couple of things there, like the hours of normal operation. I love the way you put it about not turning your phone off on Friday and turning it back on Monday morning, but the emergency type scenario, but also the variety, the things you described in that day of a life of an owner. It doesn't sound like it's everything's exactly the same every single day, humdrum type scenario. It seems like there's a variety of things that owner has that flexibility to be able to get into, including still interacting with some of those clients too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think you characterize it well, and I think a lot of our franchisees like that. There's variety in it. Yeah, we like them to get into a pattern of, hey, go visit X number of new hotels each week and try to get
Right.
out a certain number of proposals each month, and we encourage them to do that and hit milestones on that. Especially the early days, you're starting to form habits so that it becomes second nature. But yes, there is some variance, and sometimes the schedules need to get altered for a variety of reasons. And similarly, our technicians, they kind of like the fact that they may work at the Marriott, one of the Courtyard by Marriott down the street for 3 days, and then the next 2 days they're going to a Hilton across town. Different. In first time they may be cleaning tile and grout. The second time maybe upholstery. So there's a variety, not only types of service, but maybe also the hotels that they're going to. Occasionally there's out of town work. Some of them like that. They get put up in the hotel where they're doing the work and get meals taken care of. And again, some of them like that type of work, which does happen occasionally.
That's great. I like the variety, but the structure, right? It's important to have that. What you said about, looking at visiting a certain number of new hotels per week, but still being able to do those things, and also the workers themselves, the technicians, having a little bit of variety. So it's good to hear it's not, the exact same thing every day, even from location, but also from the different services. That's really cool to hear that you have that broad spectrum. Let's uh Let's shift gears just a little bit here and talk about what someone would go through if they're thinking about looking at your franchise and having you look at them. What does that due diligence process look like? What are the steps? You mentioned a couple of months. Like what are the, not all of them, but give us like the milestones or keystone parts to the process.
Yeah, the typical process is we'll have an initial phone call after I'm introduced and to the candidate, and I really like to spend uh, a lot of time on this and be the lead point. And as we get more further in the process, certainly they'll meet more of the team. But to me, is heading up the company, my number one priority is people. Whether it's people looking to join Renew, or maybe it's certainly our existing franchisees. I mentioned I visit them every month, every year, and we have a phone conversation every month, one-on-one. So I spend a lot of time with the people that are either part of our firm looking to join us, our big customers, things like that. The reason I mention that is so I like to play the lead, interacting with people that are seriously looking at Renew.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have an initial phone conversation, send them more information, typically including our franchise disclosure document. They'll go through that. I tell them to encourage them to make a list of questions. Can be a very long list. We'll go through those in our next conversation. I'll ask them some questions to try to probe to see if on our end we think they're a good fit, because certainly we'd like both parties, them and us, to come to that conclusion if we're going to move forward. So we'll ask questions as well. And then we'll open up our franchisee network for them to contact to ask questions. Those are one-on-one phone calls, or if they want to meet, that's fine too. I won't be involved, and my team won't be involved. They can ask our franchisees whatever they like, and
Mm-hmm.
usually they'll get candid answers on that. We're big into that validation process because, again, it's important, we think, for our franchisees to learn as much as they can about Renew, the good, the bad, what is day in the life, so that they can hopefully make an informed decision. So they can talk to any and all of our franchisees and get their perspectives, and they'll learn a lot in that process. Then we'll have another conversation, and the next step would be to meet. Typically, it's at our home office in Chicago for a better part of a day. They'll meet the team. They'll take them out to a job site, see a team crew in action. They can visit one or two of our customers, ask them questions. They'll get a real good overview of what it's like. We'll give them the tour of the facility, and they'll go away with a lot of answers and a lot of knowledge. Of course, we'll get to spend time with them, get to know them better, so it'll help inform us. But after that point, they'll pretty much have enough information to be able to make a decision. Now, they may not quite be ready because they may not want to quite be ready, but they'll have enough information. And again, that can be for, let's call it, 6-week process. if they can't visit us for whatever reason, we can do a lot of that meeting remote, and I'll go visit them.
Sure.
But that's sort of how the process works. And if they need financing, we can help with that. We've had good success getting our franchisees some SBA financing. We've got good partners there. So if they've got a good credit score, high likelihood they'll be able to get financing. We can help with that process as needed. And that's done in parallel so that so that won't hold up for a period of time the closing process. So that's really largely what it is. And if all goes according to plan and they're on board and we're on board, sign the franchise agreement and make payment, and then like I say, in as little as 4 weeks, we can have them come to Chicago for training.
Well, it sounds like a really good, comprehensive mutual due diligence process. I liked a couple things that you mentioned there, as you know, you probably picked up on talking with me, but making sure that the franchisor and the potential franchisee are both on the same page, that you're both interested in working with each other. I think that's super important, and you know, it's good to have that process in place where they can talk with existing franchise owners and have some flexibility to meet with you guys as well. I think, you know, letting someone go through that due diligence and giving you a chance to look at who's going to be representing your company out there in the field as well, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's a big decision for our franchisees, no doubt. But it's also a big decision for us because it's our brand that we've worked very hard at building. And frankly, it's the livelihood of our other franchisees as well. So I'm not saying we're always going to be 100% in selecting people, but but we try our best at it, and it's important to get to know our franchisees because again, it's important for them decision for them, but it's also important for us for our brand. And frankly, we're giving up a big territory, a whole city, as we've talked about. And if we don't have a good franchisee there, we're losing out, frankly, on a big opportunity and potentially hurting our brand as well. So we put a lot of attention into the decision as well.
Makes a lot of sense to me, and I think anybody that's taking a serious look at a business like this, it'll probably make sense to them too. What as we start to get towards the end here, what is the future? You had talked just a little bit about the international component. What does the future look like for your company? Growth plans, target areas, where are you looking to grow? What does that all look like for you guys?
Yeah, in addition to helping our franchisees, existing franchisees grow their business, we've got some new ones that are in the steep ramp up period, but even our more mature ones, still more growth. And our marketing team really works heavily to help get to try to help get open the door to new customers there. So that's always going to be a component. The other one is, as you're talking about, is geographic expansion. Mentioned we've got about 15 territories left in the U.S. All our big cities, because that's all we target, where there's a healthy hotel population. So we'd like to fill those out over time. We don't want to grow too fast because if we outstretch our capabilities of onboarding and ramping up our new franchisees, that's not good. But we think we can open at least several a year in the US and 1 to 2 internationally is our target. And we more or less hit that target, certainly on the domestic end, and we're ramping up on the international end, which is the other component on the geographic component. Geographic growth. We're not going to be everywhere. We don't want to be everywhere. We're pretty selective. We base our targets on primarily hotel population
Hmm.
of high-end hotels. Are there a certain number in a geographic area? One of the good things is the big brands that we know well and know us well, the big US and Western brands, Hilton and Marriott and Intercontinental and some of the others I've mentioned, they tend to they have a large and growing geographic footprint. So we follow them and they encourage us to help them in more locations. So that's a lot of where we take our lead. And then we also look at other factors such as outsourcing. We tend to like places with higher wages because they're more keen to outsource. So those are some of the criteria we look at, as well as where we get some inbound inquiries, where we have some relationships because some of our hotel managers go to other locations and encourage us to open in other cities and other countries. So more specifically, a lot of Europe, particularly Western Europe, we now have 2 locations in Paris and Madrid. We'd like to ramp up more there. Middle East, we've got 2. We've got one in Qatar, and we're opening up one in the Emirates. And we'd like to expand geographically in the GCC area.
Hmm.
And in Asia, there's some nice locations in Southeast Asia and Australia. So those are the primary targets now, and we're looking for good quality people. That again doesn't matter what their backgrounds are. So in some cases, particularly internationally, they're in the cleaning business. It may be a company, not individuals, which is where we typically find in the U.S. Either individuals, husband-wife teams, or teams of 2. But internationally, it can be different, particularly since the territories can be larger, can be entire countries. So we have some facility service companies that we're talking to, some people in the cleaning business, not cleaning hotels, or in other cases, hotel owners and managers are interested in us. So it can be a range of different people, of different parties, and geographically, I hit some of the highlights.
Well, that's a lot you have going on for the future there, domestically, organically, internationally, and it seems like you're taking a very intentional, controlled approach. I've picked up on a couple of things that you said, David, about who you're partnering with and what you're looking for in the healthy growth of the franchise company because it benefits franchisees and franchisors and customers, right?
That's right. That's right. And
Now, let's talk about if somebody wants to learn more. I've listened to the interview here. I'm interested in learning more. I want to start, doing my due diligence and talking with you guys. And I'll make sure to share this information here with the interview as well. How can folks learn more about your franchise? What's your preferred method of contact? What information do you have available for them?
sure. Our website is renewysystems.com. That's REN like Nancy, UE systems with an S.com. It's a lot of information on our company, on our franchisee, how to contact us. But I am more than willing to talk to anyone, by email, even by phone call, by text. I generally make myself very responsive. Happy to talk about Renew, of course. Uh, I'm also happy just to talk about franchisees, or if someone's interested, hey, what do I start looking for? How do I go through the process? Even if Renew is not a fit for them, I'm happy to try to point them in the right direction, uh, because I'm a big believer in franchising. I think it can be a great opportunity for people, for not only their employment, their livelihood, but also them hiring teams and providing livelihoods for other people. So more than happy to talk generally about it, even if it's not directly helping Renew. And of course, I'm more than happy to talk to Renew. And feel free, John, to give out my email and phone number as well.
I sure will. I'll make sure to include it all right below the interview there so they can click on it, they can call, they can text, they can email you and get right in touch with you guys and you can have those conversations. So, David, I always ask at the end here as we're finalizing, is there anything else that you think that I missed? Anything else you want to share with the listeners? Do you think we covered it all? You want to recap here at the end?
Yeah, I think we covered we certainly covered a lot. The one closing piece I will say is if someone's interested in business ownership, franchising could be a very good fit because you're working for yourself. A lot of your success is going to depend on yourself, but you've got a nice team. If you're aligned with a good franchise system, you've got a really nice support network. Yes, there's a startup cost, but if you think about it, if you were to try to start your own business, it would take you likely years, certainly months, probably more like years to kind of learn how to do the business. And it'll cost you not only a lot of time, but a lot of money, trial and error, trying to figure out what equipment, whatever it might be to learn it. So franchising, yes, there's a fee, but you'll get into business a lot quicker. You'll make a lot fewer mistakes. You'll have a great support network ongoing, and you can get into business very quickly. So strongly consider franchising is my recommendation. And then as far as the type of franchise, there are so many different types of concepts. I wasn't certainly even thinking a company like Renew existed, a highly specialized service to the high-end hospitality industry. I
Right.
had no idea it existed, but my point is there are lots of different types. There's restaurants, there's stores, there's service businesses, there's consumer oriented service businesses, business service oriented businesses, and so many others. So, depending on your budget, depending on your geography, depending on your lifestyle, what you like to do, what you don't like to do, there's many opportunities. So I'd encourage you to look around. There are a number of consultants that can help you maneuver and give you advice. They don't cost you anything. They're paid by the franchisor upon a placement, and I'm happy to point you in the right direction. So my point is, there's lots of options. Shouldn't rush to a decision. Hopefully, you'll make a good decision, and with a good franchise system, because there's many franchise systems. Some are good, some less good. But I think just going through a deliberative due diligence process, you'll be able to weed out ones that are a good fit for you and ones that you think are good franchise systems. So that, I guess I'll just leave it as a sort of a general um, discussion on my 2 cents, John, on franchising.
No, that's great. You summed it up great. I agree with everything you just said. And I think that looking at a company like Renew and what you guys have to offer and how your approach to everything has been very enlightening. I think that folks will take some nuggets away from this. And even just talking generally about franchising, right? There's a ton of knowledge here, folks, with David and his team. Feel free to reach out to them. I'll make sure to include all of your contact information on there, and we'll get this in front of some folks for you. And folks, if you're listening and you do end up talking to David, please make sure to mention the franchise radio show so that he knows that you heard this interview, because it really helps understand where you're at in your thought process too. There you go. John Henning here with the Franchise Radio Show, finishing up with David Grossman, CEO and President of Renue Systems. David, thank you so much, buddy.
Thank you much, John. This is a lot of fun, and thank you all for listening. I'm happy to continue the conversation.